People
Did you see Nancy
why?
Pelosi defend insider trading?
I was just about to ask.
What'd you say? I don't know, guys. I'm doing great at it. You guys should try
A bunch
it.
of people were freaking out about it. I think it was Crystal and Sagar we're doing. I didn't watch it, but I did see the headline that she apparently.
Oh, it's incredible! You have to watch it. It's like
she's just bypassing all the laws to make hella cash.
She looks so.
The reason that this idea to put a ban on stock trading for members of Congress is even a thing is because of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she is rightfully criticized because she makes, I think, $174,000 a year, yet she has a net worth of approximately $413 million. In 2024, Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio, this was a fascinating statistic to me, grew 70% in 1 year in 2020.
Forget polite send-offs. Years of market-fluent monologues, rehearsed grins, and blatant hypocrisy just got shredded in spectacular fashion. The obsession with holding all the strings wrapped in phony press briefings and choreographed outrage has finally been laid bare. Pelosi's exit won't be a graceful curtain call, it's bound to be messy. This isn't just unmasking a persona, it's obliterating the illusion entirely. Buckle up, this is about to get outrageously funny.
Did you see the Nancy Pelosi thing? The new one?
She was being interviewed and then was like, I didn't want to talk about that.
Anderson Cooper. You put that on. Anderson Cooper, he sneaks it in. She's like, I came in here to talk about the anniversary of Medicaid. Like, she cares about Medicaid. She's worth an estimated $400 million now.
How? What's the salary? 70,000 a year?
170 grand a year, something like that. 200 grand a year.
On this, he doesn't want to see people like Nancy Pelosi enriching themselves off of public service and ripping off their constituents in the process. As for the mechanics of the legislation and how it will move forward, the White House continues to be in discussions with our...
Karoline Leavitt and Joe Rogan didn't just poke fun at Nancy Pelosi, they turned her entire legacy into a cautionary tale of public embarrassment. Her carefully crafted image got scorched beyond recognition. Years of glossy deception, old guard maneuvering, and a persona propped up by cosmetic touch-ups and broken commitments were all incinerated by this relentless verbal onslaught.
The amount of stock trading that's done by members of Congress, the amount of fucking money that they make when they know decisions that are going to be signed and passed. They know laws that are going to be put into place. They know, like there was one recently that we're talking about Nancy Pelosi and the amount of money she invested in Tesla right before Biden signed this EV bill, electric vehicle bill. It's like 1.2 million. Find out fast.
Many members of Congress hold significant wealth, actively trade stocks, and have insider knowledge about upcoming laws and decisions. They're not clueless, they're informed. A standout case often brought up is Nancy Pelosi's connection to a major Tesla investment, reportedly made shortly before President Biden introduced legislation favoring electric vehicles. The amount tied to that trade? Nearly $1.2 million, according to some claims. But does that figure hold up? It's worth checking the facts to see what really happened.
Here, let's watch this because it's so funny.
Let me just read what he said. I'm sorry that we had some sort of technical issue. Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
Yeah, but I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted.
Pelosi doesn't stand a chance, no matter how tightly she clutches that gavel like it's the only thing keeping her from political obscurity. Joe Rogan didn't hold back. He launched into his takedown like he was gearing up for a title fight. And his opening jab? A direct hit to her luxury wine stash. While everyday Americans were scrambling for toilet paper, Pelosi's idea of crisis management was stockpiling free designer ice cream. Small businesses were suffocating under lockdowns, yet she was filming glossy house tours from the comfort of her sprawling estate. According to reports, she even earned praise for her leadership, which apparently meant offering up gelato diplomacy while the nation struggled.
You talked with the president at his position on the stock trading ban bill before Congress. He obviously had pretty loaded comments about Senator Hawley. There's some reporting that they've since spoken. What is his position on the current status of that bill?
The president has spoken to Senator Hawley, who called him, and the president took that call. As the president said in the Roosevelt Room yesterday, conceptually, he of course supports the idea of ensuring that members of Congress and United States senators who are here for public service cannot...
Karoline Leavitt didn't pull any punches either. To her, Pelosi's legacy resembled a relic-filled museum of contradictions. One moment, Pelosi shredding speeches like a toddler gone wild in a paper mill. The next, she's dramatically warning about threats to democracy. But let's be honest, it's less about safeguarding the republic and more about guarding her prized office space and endless speaking gigs. If Pelosi ever stood on genuine principles, they probably bolted long ago, right around the time insider tips and lobbyist cash became the real power players in the room.
Stocks.
Well, insider trading is against the law.
Yeah.
How is that not insider trading?
Right.
If you know that someone's going to sign a bill and that bill is going to be a massive boost to the electrical vehicle industry, just as an example, and you know that bill's going to be signed, so right before that bill's signed, you buy a fuckload of stock in electrical vehicles, and then the next day, or whenever it was, that bill gets passed, and then that stock goes up, and you make a shit ton of money.
Listening to Pelosi during those public appearances feels like watching a malfunctioning amusement park robot. Her hands flail like they're trying to flag down a jet, while her words stumble out as a scrambled mess of glitched-out phrases and condescending flair. Even after decades in power, she still seems baffled that anyone questions her decisions, despite backing a stimulus package stuffed with more unnecessary spending than a Texas-style barbecue has pork. Pelosi's fragile public persona didn't just crack. Joe Rogan turned up the heat until it melted. Behind the polished photos, carefully chosen outfits, and tightly scripted press events, it became clear her time in office was more about controlling the narrative than fixing real problems. Rather than empower rising Democratic voices with fresh ideas, she spent years sidelining them to preserve her own spotlight. That is, unless she's busy repackaging impeachment as a seasonal spectacle while putting on a prayer act for the cameras. Joe didn't stop there. He brought up the infamous insider trading accusations, questioning how Pelosi's stock picks seemed to outperform the market, like she owned a fortune-telling device. If everyday Americans had her kind of luck, the whole country would be living on luxury yachts. But when pressed about her uncanny financial instincts, Pelosi morphed into a human deflector shield, dodging questions with the skill of a seasoned politician avoiding accountability. Karoline Leavitt pushed back even harder, dismantling the myth of Pelosi as a symbol of strength. Her track record, she argued, centers on ramming through bloated bills no one reads and staging endless photo ops. It's less about meaningful reform and more about staying relevant. That's why Pelosi treats the Constitution like a stage prop, waving it around for effect while acting as if she wrote the thing herself.
And her portfolio outperformed every single large hedge fund in that same year and even more than doubled the returns of Warren Buffett's Berkshire. Later, Nancy Pelosi can thank President Trump today for the 104% retaliatory tariff that will be going into effect on China. In 2007, Chuck Schumer spoke of our nation's crippling trade deficit, saying these are the kinds of records the American people don't want us to be breaking. The administration needs to move beyond words, take action now to reverse a trend that threatens our prospects for future.
She accused Trump of dividing the country, yet it was Pelosi, adorned in designer scarves, who fanned the flames of discord. Every time she spoke, it felt like she was deepening the political divide, not bridging it. Her speeches weren't calls for unity. They were carefully crafted performances meant to stir outrage, spark media frenzy, and energize social media echo chambers. Joe Rogan didn't sugarcoat anything either. He spotlighted Pelosi's lifelong obsession with political theater, where decisions aren't real unless there's a camera present. One of his sharpest examples was her kneeling in a kente cloth amid nationwide unrest, turning real pain into a strange cultural photo shoot. It wasn't about justice, it was all about image. Her every move is part of a branding campaign. The passion doesn't burn within her. She hoards influence like Gollum clutching a government pension. Karoline Leavitt stepped up with her own fierce takedown. Despite all the praise and polished press, Pelosi's true legacy seems to be wealth accumulation and a flawless cosmetic routine. She's mastered the art of robotic legislating, performing with the emotional flair of a daytime drama queen, all while pretending to care.
Transparent, and it's right in front of your face, like the Nancy Pelosi situation. She's never made more than $175,000 a year. She's worth $100 and something million. You ever see the one where they confronted her about being able to insider trade? You never saw it?
No.
It's wild.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information you've received from you?
No, absolutely not.
Because he pushes the mic away.
How does someone spend 50 years in government and leave everything in ruins? Joe asked as he wrapped up. The answer, fixing things was never the mission. Pelosi's legacy revolves around preserving power, steering public perception, and somehow convincing the nation it should applaud her, despite decades of dysfunction. She tried to frame her exit as a graceful handover, but no one's buying it. Nothing meaningful changed. Even in retreat, she avoided confronting the deep corruption within her own party. She played politics like a board game, rigging the rules in her favor while preaching ethics. She championed transparency, yet kept the cameras out when it really mattered. If hypocrisy were a job description, Pelosi would have lifetime tenure. Joe drove the point home. Pelosi is like an old legacy brand, constantly rewrapping the same outdated product in shinier packaging. And when it comes to leadership, she's the political version of Windows Vista, buggy, outdated, and long overdue for a replacement.
Watching the panic in her face, realizing that Trump is now president, and they're talking about literally going after her for insider trading, and the undeniable evidence that they have had better results on the stock market than literally anyone ever.
Yeah.
And they have access to information about laws that are going to be passed.
Yeah.
If that's not insider trading.
What's left behind for Americans is a scattered mess of bloated programs, speeches that aged like spoiled cheese, and a long political career that managed to touch everything while fixing almost nothing, ending with her carefully choreographed farewell tour. In truth, Pelosi stepping down might be the most productive thing she's done for the country. In that silence, Joe and Karoline stepped forward. They didn't fill it with rehearsed outrage or tired slogans, but with raw honesty. Their critique peeled back the designer facade, exposing years of dysfunction beneath the surface. And no matter how many glossy magazine covers she appeared on, or how often she condemned Trump, the reality stayed the same. Pelosi posed as a trailblazer, but in the end she was just a relic of old politics. Then came the final blow. This wasn't just a symbolic takedown. Joe and Karoline didn't leave her simply exposed. They obliterated the entire image. They didn't just set her political legacy on fire, they left it in ruins. Now all that lingers is the scent of scorched power suits and the faint echo of forced applause.
Still older than Biden, like, chill out. Go on a vacation.
The things he says are so inappropriate for a president of the United States. The comments he makes about women.
Also, why are you still doing it? You're older than Biden.
You're asking me about the appropriateness of the actions of this president? So completely inappropriate in so many ways. It's almost a given.
It's not even about the money, it's about access, the power.
He comes in with doggy-doo on his shoes, and everybody who works with him has that on their shoes, too.
The people who carry your bags and toady ass.
Pelosi's exit didn't bring closure. It sparked more questions. Joe Rogan kept sifting through the wreckage of her political career, only to find a smoldering pile of carefully packaged failures where real leadership should have been. For decades, she wrapped dysfunction in ceremonial gestures, convincing the public she was holding the line. In truth, she was simply clinging to the spotlight. Joe zeroed in on Pelosi's most practiced maneuver, wielding moral superiority as a political weapon. Like her public statements, her values sounded noble but rang hollow. Meanwhile, Karoline shattered the lingering illusion that Pelosi was untouchable. By silencing rising talent and treating power like a personal pension plan, Pelosi didn't just remain in control, she made herself seem indispensable. But she didn't pave the way forward. She built a toll booth on the road to progress, charging credibility at every turn. Instead of guiding the next wave of leaders, she stood in their way. Armed with fake outrage and scripted theatrics, ensuring the spotlight stayed firmly on her.
In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said, "How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit? How many jobs have to be lost for the American workers? How much dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, 'I will not endorse the status quo'?" Those are the words of Nancy Pelosi in 1990.
Joe wasn't about to let the insider trading issue slide. With a grin as sharp as Pelosi's airtight non-disclosure agreements, he pointed out just how absurd it was that the Speaker of the House could consistently outperform even Wall Street's most seasoned pros. While everyday Americans were pleading for relief at the gas pump, Pelosi was making high-stakes moves in the stock market, moves that just happened to align perfectly with upcoming legislation. And when pressed about it, she delivered a cocktail of denial, evasion, and righteous indignation, the kind of response you'd expect from a political satire, not real life. Karoline, marking the end of Pelosi's career, couldn't help but point out the irony of her final act, stepping down as if it were a noble gesture when it was just another scripted exit. Joe closed it all out with precision, like a veteran fighter delivering the final punch or a monarch reluctantly handing over the crown. Pelosi didn't just embody gridlock, she engineered it. Though she led during one of the most divisive chapters in modern American history, she painted herself as the last defense against extremism. Yet under her leadership, trust collapsed. Outrage became policy, and the idea of working together across the aisle faded into a political illusion.
Hold on. Pelosi's husband invested in Tesla, but not as viral post claims. Okay, so it's bullshit. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi purchased $1.25 million in stock from the electric vehicle company Tesla a day later on...
Because this is a free market and people... We're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
She's telling why her husband should be able to invest in stuff that she knows about.
Have you ever seen a person look more nervous?
Yeah.
It was the long sip, the gulp afterwards, and then...
Her caucus was never truly united by vision or principle, only by their shared talent for blaming everything on Donald Trump. And now, with Trump ironically back in the White House, it underscores just how shallow that unity really was. That alone speaks volumes. Karoline delivered the final twist. She reminded the public that despite Pelosi's constant talk of defending democracy, she never genuinely trusted it. Pelosi never believed the American people could make informed choices unless she could control the narrative. Reform, open debate, transparency. None of that mattered unless it served her image. What she was really protecting wasn't the Constitution, it was her own legacy. Progress wasn't the goal, self-preservation was. Her so-called legacy now stands as a monument to artificial importance, not bold transformation. A career built on strategic investments, stylish footwear, and headline-grabbing controversy. Today, public trust is lower, Congress is more fractured, and Pelosi leaves behind an inflated reputation stitched together by photo ops and scripted outrage. Joe and Karoline didn't just end the roast, they sealed it with finality. Pageantry is over. The carefully crafted story of public service has been stripped down to its core. Self-interest masked as leadership. Joe Rogan and Karoline Leavitt's bold exchange didn't just reflect public sentiment. They tapped into a growing shift in how political leadership is being reevaluated in real time. Their commentary didn't come off as a vendetta, but rather a mirror held up to a long-standing institution that had become synonymous with style over substance. While Nancy Pelosi's storied tenure has often been framed as a masterclass in political strategy, Rogan and Leavitt challenged viewers to look past the press conferences and photo op to examine the core of her influence. In fact, what made this segment so compelling was how it balanced sharp critique with a sense of overdue accountability. Rumors now swirl that Pelosi's decision to step back from frontline politics wasn't just voluntary. It may have followed behind-the-scenes tension with rising progressive voices quietly pushing for generational change. Reports have also surfaced suggesting her departure may have helped ease internal divisions within her party, signaling that the era of top-down messaging may be on its way out. Rogan's takedown, while humorous, also raised a serious question about stock trading in Congress, an issue that continues to stir bipartisan concern. In fact, legislation aimed at banning lawmakers from trading individual stocks has been quietly gaining traction again, and Pelosi's name remains tied to the debate not because of formal wrongdoing, but due to how frequently her financial moves appeared to mirror key policy moments. Meanwhile, Leavitt's insight struck a cultural chord. Was Pelosi's legacy really about policy, or about perfecting the optics of leadership? Her take echoed what many young voters have begun to voice, that traditional political branding no longer holds the weight it used to. Even among seasoned commentators, there's a growing consensus that Pelosi's exit may symbolize a larger cultural shift in Washington, where image-driven politics is giving way to authenticity-first platforms. The segment also hinted at a deeper irony, that in trying to protect her narrative so fiercely, Pelosi may have unintentionally diluted her impact. Her most well-known moments, tearing a speech, posing in symbolic attire, or delivering press briefings in designer ensembles, now risk being remembered more for the spectacle than for the substance. And that, perhaps, is the heart of Rogan and Leavitt's critique, that modern political leadership must do more than manage perception. It must produce results that speak for themselves. Even as Pelosi steps back, conversations about financial transparency, generational leadership, and political theater are only intensifying. As this chapter of her career closes, the spotlight naturally shifts to what and who comes next. And if this segment is any indication, the new political landscape may be less about scripted appearances and more about unscripted accountability. The applause has stopped, the tears were staged, and in the end, even the hairstyle will fade into political oblivion.